Welcome, everybody, to another Fresh Start Alumni webinar. With us today, we are excited to have Rozy Wax, a licensed mental health professional from Indiana. And a little bit about Rozy. Rozy's been a therapist for almost 40 years and is trained in somatic intervention, EMDR, CBT, Gottman, NLP, safe and sound protocol. She graduated with her Master's of Arts degree in psychology in 1982 from the University of Notre Dame. And she's been in the field for many, many, many years since. Rozy has since moved into less counseling individuals and more of supervision and training of therapists. Rozy serves on the board of directors of NEFESH, the International Network of Orthodox Mental Health Professionals. But most notably for us, Rozy has worked closely with the Fresh Start clinical team and continues to. Some of you may have even worked with her personally, as she's been co-led one of our sessions. But we are honored, and it's a privilege to have Rozy with us here today. We always talk about a variety of topics, and it's sort of open-ended here. However, one of the exciting things that we have implemented in working with Rozy specifically is her expertise in the field of grounding and resourcing. And I was hoping to make today's webinar a little more on that topic, but of course, Rozy is open to a variety of questions on the topic of trauma. So that being said, Rozy, if you can sort of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your work in the field of grounding, resourcing, etc., and then we'll get into the fun part.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Mr. Poulter. I'm very honored to be with the staff of Fresh Start and the alumni of Fresh Start today, because I know that I'm in the company of a group of individuals who are seeking growth and achieving growth. And there is nothing more satisfying than that. It doesn't matter where we are in life. It matters in which direction we are moving. So as long as we are moving in the direction of healing, we are on the right path. But we know that healing is not a straight line up, and it sort of goes like this. And because it goes like that, it's not as easy path to take. And as I was thinking how I'm going to really talk about grounding and resourcing, I wanted to do a little bit of psych ed with you so that you can understand the function of grounding and resourcing, as well as the opportunities that will come our way when we can do it, because the opportunities come every day, at any time, even the times that we don't want it to be happening, even when we think we are failing. It's actually an opportunity for healing and growth for us. And that I also wanted to share with everybody that I myself had a physical trauma at one point, and this is a lot of my work in understanding. I had an accident with a fire, and I was hurt by the fire, and it was very traumatic for me. And a lot of what I learned from learning to heal myself, as well as working with clients who had trauma history over many years. But I really did not understand the totality of it until I experienced it. So I'm amongst a group of fellow survivors. So I have an appreciation for everybody in this meeting. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit before we get into more of the resourcing is our tendency to get triggered what is really happening when we get triggered and how that ties into resourcing. Many of you have been, all of you actually, have been through the process of Fresh Start program, and you have achieved a lot during that week, I'm sure. And we hope when we make so much progress in such a short time, we hope that things will not hurt us anymore. And we come to the realization that there is still some hurt, as well as behind us. And it is very disappointing when we think that we have overcome something and we are still facing it over and over again sometimes. And I wanted to talk about that because when we get triggered, I wanted to explain the mechanism of that trigger. When we get triggered, there is a very strong emotional attachment and emotional bonding that happens in our neurobiological system. So when we have that intense emotion, our brain becomes neuroplastic, meaning we make new pathways. That's the way we learn trauma. We become traumatized by that intense emotion that is paired and connected to other things that were happening at the same time. And those things that were happening at the same time tend to trigger us in the future, those similar things. And just like we learn to be traumatized like that, we learn to heal with the same mechanism as well. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm going to give a little example of a car accident I had so that everybody can understand what I'm trying to explain. My car accident, I had a hit and run accident. I stopped at a red light, and when the light turned green, I moved forward, but the car coming from the other direction did not stop at the red light and hit me. And I had a bad impact. And all I could hear is I could see the green light. I could hear the of the tires and then the impact. And so the screeches of the tires and the green light got paired together with my accident. So whenever I would see a green light after that, it was triggering for me. Whenever I heard a sound of the screeching tires, that was triggering for me. And a week later, I was in the office with one of my clients, and I'm sitting with my client, and in front of me is my client and a pot of beautiful arrangement of silk flowers right next to the client. I'm looking at my client, and I heard the screeching sound. And then, of course, I got triggered. But at the same time, I was looking at my client and the silk flowers in front of me. So when that emotion came up again, my body became neuroplastic, meaning it can make new connections. And the flowers and my client got paired as a new trauma. So the week after, when that client came and sat down next to those flowers, when I came into the room, I immediately got charged and I got triggered. I'm hoping that this is making sense to everybody. Now, it wasn't even original trauma anymore. It was the next time became a new trauma. So once we become triggerable, every time we trigger, more and more things get paired up with that fear, and we become more and more triggerable. And the healing part comes because what neuroplastic means that we can make new connections with new stimuli, new things. And we become neuroplastic when we get triggered, as we said. The healing part is when we do get triggered, but we are able to down-regulate ourselves. We are able to really maintain some kind of calming and grounding instead of running away from the whole thing. We are actually pairing those triggers with the ability to self-contain, to down-regulate. We are teaching our body new experience, that this trigger doesn't have to make us go out of control. We are able to associate it with being grounded and with being calm. Just like we become traumatized, neuroplasticity can also teach us that we can handle the intense emotions, and it is not too much for us because we have been able to deal with it in the new situation. We cannot be out of control and calm and capable at the same time. When we are able to ground ourselves and when we are able to down-regulate ourselves, that's a totally different experience with that trigger. So now that trigger loses its power that it used to have. Now, why this is important is that every time we do experience a new stressful situation and a new trigger, we sometimes look at it that here I am at square one. I am back in this terrible spot. But now that we know, this can also be an opportunity for healing. And we have learned the skills that we have gained in Fresh Start and in our therapy in different situations. We can really look at the trigger situation as an opportunity for healing and down-regulating, instead of looking at it as a situation that makes us feel like we haven't gotten anywhere. We are back to square one. So this is really what I wanted to be able to communicate as we are talking today. And I was wondering if there were any questions on this, if I was able to be clear.
So Rozy, I have a few questions that came in, but let me start with two. So based on what you just said, dare I use the word, it might sound a little hopeless, because even non-negative situations like plastic flowers in your office can become traumatizing experiences. So we can essentially take the most innocent and benign things and they become traumatizing too. I mean, how does one live life that way? I mean, we understand the bad things being traumatizing, the negative smells, the negative voices, sounds, places, but now you're saying even neutral stuff are relatively nice stuff.
Correct. And the reason that they do become traumatizing is because they pair with the original trauma. And when we understand why we are having this emotion, then we can really sit down and take a step back and say, this is not because I'm in danger. This is because I had these things pair up with my original trauma. And then really take it, because the most traumatizing thing is when we are losing control and we don't know why. But now that we understand that we need to be able to tell ourselves, and we understand why it is happening. And this also gives us the opportunity that when this happens, when more triggers come in, we can discuss this with our therapist, and our therapist can target this and explain it to us, and we can use the opportunity of being triggered and then downregulate ourselves, that pairing loses its power. As we use our resources more and more, the different resources that we have been able to utilize, we can actually know what's happening, be aware of our body's reaction, and take the time to downregulate ourselves in that moment. We are actually able to reteach the body to not be traumatized. Just like the body learns to be traumatized, it can learn to not be traumatized as long as we understand the mechanism.
Got it. So essentially, even if we are in a environment or a situation or with people that may bring up that trauma, if we are aware and we keep in mind what you just said, that
Yes.
will minimize all the other surrounding experiences or situations going on right there of also becoming traumatizing.
Correct.
Okay.
It will. And also, as we downregulate after the traumatization, we are actually teaching our body not to down. We are teaching our body to expect to be downregulated instead of going over the threshold to dysregulation, because as we are keeping our resources, using our resources and being able to manage it, and there are a lot of resources you all learned in Fresh Start and with your therapist. As you utilize them, you are going to reteach your body, because when we get triggered, we are capable of learning. Our body stays neuroplastic for 5 hours. Our breath.
Well, I was going to go into that question that's the second question that came in. So are you essentially saying, and I think you shared this with us before, but healing actually, I don't want to say only happens, but that's what I'm asking. Are you saying that healing only actually happens when you're in that triggered state? And that's the time to heal those triggers versus when everything's going wonderful and everybody's feeling great?
Healing can happen anytime. However, most powerfully when it is triggered and highly like emotionally charged. That is the time where new connections can be made. If we can use that moment to make connection to safety and downregulation, our body is learning not to be afraid of that trigger anymore.
Got it. Okay. So let's jump into some questions. Yitzi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, Yitzi, go ahead, ask.
Okay, so this is a multi-part question. I'll try to get through it without telling my whole life story in the process. So the first part of the question essentially is, would you differentiate between what you experienced, which is what I would classify as the capital T trauma, to what a lot of people here probably on this call and who went through Fresh Start experience, which was either what I would classify as complex trauma or multiple capital T traumas. So the difference being there is that there isn't really one specific traumatic event that we can point to. So when we're being triggered, we have literally no idea what it's coming from because there are so many triggers. There were so many traumas that we experienced. So for us, even living daily life is triggering and we have no idea why. As you said kind of in your thing, which was really, really great, the way you said it was like the silk flowers became imprinted. We have literally everything is just silk flowers. So what happens with me, and I've heard other people on these previous calls say this, is that at some point it just gets too much for the brain. And what we do is we just dissociate. So instead of down regulating, what we do is we just go away in our head. So to the point where if you were to ask me in therapy, what are you feeling? I'll be like, I have no idea, because my default neural pathways are just go dissociate whenever you are triggered by anything, because we have no idea what it's from. So no useful information there. So just go away somewhere. So there are sometimes I'm kind of aware that I'm being triggered, but I'm not even in touch with those body sensations to know why. I'll walk into therapy and my therapist will be like, oh, so how are you feeling today? I'll be like, yeah, I'm fine. In the meantime, I'm clenching my fists. My teeth are all clenched. I'm like in a tight position like this. And I literally have no idea until my therapist tells me. And I feel that this experience is something that a lot of people here probably experience. So if you don't know what you're feeling, and if instead of down regulating, what you're doing is you're going for dissociation, which kind of feels the same in a way, because down regulating, you're regulating your emotions, but you're getting more in touch with them, from what I understand, well, as opposed to what I'm doing, which is dissociating, where you're running away from the emotion, and you never really know which one you're really doing because you don't even know how to feel your emotions properly. So I guess two-part question is, what do you do? First of all, would you differentiate between complex trauma and capital T trauma? And number two, if so, and since this experience is common with people who experience complex trauma, how do you down-regulate if you don't know what you're even feeling?
Okay, excellent, many questions, and I'm going to try and tackle it a couple of times. When I wanted to give a simple example, nobody's life is as simple as the little traumatic event that was so simple to explain, but I wanted to use that as because it explains the mechanism well in a single case. But complex trauma, you can't put your finger on whatever the trauma is because you experienced tension and sensation and constantly living in tension all the time. Part of our healing process is us learning how to read our body, and as much as possible. And one of the ways that we do that is by resourcing, in the sense, by many times a day, taking 1 or 2 minutes to really breathe and meditate. There are we can use little windows of opportunity, breathing and regulating and noticing our body. Where am I now? Because what you're describing is somebody whose window of tolerance is very, very narrow. And the minute a little emotion comes, the fear of overwhelming emotion, and the minute the emotion comes, you have already reached to the top of the threshold and you're out. That's what I'm hearing from you, if I'm not wrong, Yitzi, correct? Because
Yeah, I was gonna say that's correct. In therapy, we joke that the window of tolerance is this hypothetical construct, which we know probably exists, but we haven't seen it yet.
Correct. So what we can do a lot of times by mindfulness exercises, resourcing exercises, noticing our feeling a little bit and coming back to a comfort state, noticing a little emotion and coming back to a comfort state. Okay, imagining a little bit of a difficult situation and coming to just noticing those dysregulations when it is not really big dysregulation, but keeping an awareness of our sensations in our body. There is an excellent exercise actually that I like from Deb Dana. If I don't know if I can put I wish I didn't know I was going to get this question. There's an exercise we can do that was recommended by Deb Dana. It is a ladder exercise that I might have shared with some of the Fresh Start therapists. And I can share it with Mr. Poulter, who can send it to the alumni later on. Doing this exercise on a regular basis and noticing how our body feels at different times, and then it becomes more to our awareness, the small dysregulations, instead of everything being just overwhelming at once. And that way, doing regular breathing exercises, noticing our body, because when we come close to the threshold, not without going over, and then going back to down regulation and comforting ourselves, we actually increase the threshold. Going up, pushing it up a little bit, coming back, going up and coming back. This up and down system opens a window of tolerance for us, because every time we're up doesn't mean that we are going to go over. We have had multiple experiences of down regulating ourselves, then we can start trusting ourselves' ability to down regulate. I'm not sure if that is making any sense. You'd see.
Yeah, it's making a lot of sense. Yeah, I'll have to check this out. I don't want to take up too much time.
So
I guess my struggle would be kind of realizing when I've reached that threshold. Like I'm so far gone that, and that's really where I get into trouble, because then my body will try to do something to regulate on its own, and I'm completely have no clue what's going on. So I agree with you. I think I'm gonna check out this exercise and see if hopefully, you know, maybe trying to expand my window of tolerance will help me become more aware
Just
of what's going on.
periodically sitting down and noticing yourself. When you're looking left, noticing one thing in the room, how it is different than when you're looking to the right, noticing something else. What it is the difference between two sides emotionally, how it is affecting you. When you look at a vase of flowers, how is that affecting you differently than looking at a family picture? You know, noticing those differences in your body and being able to downregulate is, instead of just trying to make it through life without feeling at all, in controlled situations, just noticing how we are reacting to neutral things, even how different things are affecting us without heavy things coming in. You know, like sitting in my office, I'm looking at, when I look at my phone, which is off right now, when I look at my phone, always work things come. Am I missing any work that I need to do? When I look at my chamomile tea, I feel relaxed. Okay. And just noticing different things, how it affects us. I mean, that tea, just looking at it, even when I don't drink it, it is relaxing for me. Noticing that and noticing how my body feels different when I look at something that's relaxing for me, and becoming more self-aware, and then ahead of time, like before things are too culminated, to be able to utilize the time by breathing or havening. Havening is an amazing, you know, just touching, because this is the original calming exercise, that skin to skin touch. That's the attachment exercise. That's what is very calming for us. And when we can do this, like when we are thinking about our struggles, and we can do this havening exercise for ourselves, calming ourselves down. And a lot of times I just pretend I'm putting cream on my hands when I'm a little stressed, but that's havening for me. You know, a lot, by the way, I'm going to, when you look at the emoji of somebody shocked or startled, what is the emoji? You know, that emoji, because we automatically go like that to self-soothe ourselves. That is because our body knows what it needs. These kinds, there are a lot of tools like that that we can use. And smells, go around, check this different smells in your house. Go to the spice box, go to your shampoo, go to your hand cream, and notice how different smells, how it feels for you, what kind of emotional state it brings you into, and use the smell that gives you the most soothing. Carry it in a Mentos box, in a cotton ball, carry it with you. If you think that smells are very powerful down resources, because the olfactory bulb is right next to our emotional center of the brain, and it goes straight. Nothing is more calming or triggering than smells for us. And when you find the smell that soothes you, use that, carry it with you all the time.
So let's, I was gonna ask a few questions. There's one or two more questions, but the truth is, I think, we have from it. Are you there? Oh, you're on mute. So Rosie, I know you mentioned that you would try and do an exercise or two, and from it here, bravely offered to volunteer. So from it, can you hear? Let's hear you talk.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So Rosie, maybe you can actually do a real actual grounding exercise and from it, and I'm assuming the rest of us can sort of do it with you.
Promit, I wanted to do a containment exercise with you. This is when we are in a situation where we are feeling a little charged, but we are not in a situation we can really focus on this emotionally, and we want to really contain our emotions because we are not in the right place to be able to deal with the emotion, not get rid of it, but really contain it so that we can deal with it later. A lot of times I do this with my clients when we come to the end of the session, but we have not processed the whatever the trigger was fully, but there is no time to finish processing it. And I cannot send my client in that charged way back home because it is, the emotions have to be contained in some way or another. Okay. Okay. So I would like, do we have people that need to be muted?
Go ahead. I muted them. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. From it, you don't have to tell me what it is, but if you would like to think of a situation that would give you a little bit of dysregulation, not 0 to 10, not a 10, but something that would be like a 5 or 6, okay? And if you can think of a situation like that and just focus on that for a minute. Okay, let me know when you're able to.
I can think about anything at any time. You get triggered very fast.
Okay, all right. So you're like the rest of us, a little bit, maybe a little more.
I don't have to think very, very deep.
Okay, all right. So from it, where are you feeling it in your body?
I feel my heart rate goes up.
Okay, so if this thing was an object, where would it be in your body?
I would say it's a square and it would sit on my heart.
It's a square, like a cube?
Yes.
Okay, and it is right by your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, what size would it be about if it was an object?
I feel it consumes me. It's bigger than my heart. So it takes over.
Like it takes over your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so would it be the size of a baseball, soccer ball, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This cube that is like a big ball, bigger, slightly bigger than your heart. If it had a color, what color would it be?
Purple.
Purple. Okay. And if it, what is it, soft? Is it cloudy? Is it mushy? Is it hard? Is it made out of wood or metal?
It's hard. It's made out of rock.
It's a hard rock.
Yeah.
And it is purple, you said?
Purple, yeah.
Purple. And it is a hard, made from a rock, and it is like a cube the size of a ball, like this. Okay.
Yeah.
And how would it feel to the touch? Hot or cold or
Cold.
cold? Okay. All right. Notice it. Notice where it is. Okay.
I feel like if I'm focusing on all these things, I stop being charged. I calm down.
Okay. That's one part of it from it. But just go with me. Okay. Just stay with me. Okay. And from it, if what I'm going to ask you is imagine a healing cloud above you, above your head, the size of you. And this cloud is coming closer and closer to you. What color would a healing light cloud be?
Light blue.
Light blue. Okay. Would it be cold to the touch, cool to the touch, or warm to the touch?
Room temperature.
Room temperature. Okay. And as this cloud comes down above you and touches your head, and you feel the touch of that room temperature above your head, and as it comes down, you feel the progression in your forehead, in your eyes, as it's coming down, and you feel the healing cloud coming down, your nose, your cheeks, your mouth, all the way down. You take a deep breath, and it fills you inside. And this healing cloud is very wise, and it goes exactly where it needs to go. And it fills you inside, and it knows exactly what needs to be healed, washing it over. And then when you breathe out, what you no longer need goes out, and you see this darker purplish breath leaving you as the breath goes farther and farther and farther away until you don't see it anymore. The cloud comes lower. You feel the progression of the cloud over your shoulders, your arms, your elbows, your chest, your waist. You take another deep breath. Fill your inside with the healing cloud, which goes exactly where it needs to go and heal exactly what it needs to heal, washing over. And as you breathe out what you no longer need to keep in, you see that breath going farther and farther and farther away until you don't see it anymore. The cloud continues to progress, coming down your hips, your legs, your knees, your ankles, your feet. You're totally surrounded with the healing cloud. You take another deep breath. You fill your body with the healing cloud. And it goes all over and goes exactly where it needs to go. And then as you breathe out what your body no longer wants to hold on to. And you see that breath going farther and farther and farther away until you do not need it anymore. Take several more breaths for the same process of filling you in, healing you in, and then letting go of what you no longer need to keep. And that breath going far away until you no longer see it. And when you have taken enough breaths, let's say 3 more. As I count to 3, you may want to come back. 1, 2, 3. From it, just do a little scan. What do you notice inside?
So that feeling left, and I felt very much like hugged, taken over by this cloud.
Okay. Do you have anything left from that cube? Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't.
I know that it's there, but it's not so in front of me the way it was before.
Do you want to hold on to it the way it is right now, or would you like to have it somewhere else?
I don't want it, but I know that it's going to be there. It's things that I need to work through.
Okay, so you're not ready to let go of it yet.
I wish I can.
Sometimes if you don't want to carry it, we can try this. I would like you to imagine a box. Should I hand a box? Hold on. I'm wondering,
I can put it into the box.
if you would feel comfortable to put it in this box where it'll be safe and kept well when you don't want to carry it with you.
Yeah, you want to take it? I'll give it to you.
Sometimes I keep it for my clients in my office.
I very gladly give it over.
Okay. Imagine, what size is it now? The same size, or is
No, it's much smaller.
it's much smaller? Okay,
It fits into that box.
it fits into that box.
Mhm.
Okay, from it, if you can imagine, just imagine that cube coming into this box. Take your time and see if it's possible for you to put it in this box.
There's a lot of resistance.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting? It's like I want to get rid of it, but
No, I know. It's okay. It's okay. There are things that you might still need to have with you. But if it is more manageable, that's okay too. You might not be ready, and that might be something you might want to think about, talk with your therapist. And it is very normal from it. There is a lot of meaning to our struggles. They are not something like we just, because a lot of our struggles from it, we needed to have them to be able to survive. Whatever difficulties we experienced is a result of some of our survival behavior. And we might just need to understand it a little better to be able to let go of it or to change it. And you have to trust yourself if you're not ready. It doesn't mean you will never be ready. And maybe there are some things you need to understand about that object. And there might be some valuable information you might need to gain from that yet. But you are collaborating a little more with it right now.
Mhm.
So on that question, Rosie, and similar to what Frimit said, we got another question here along the same lines. I find so many of these grounding techniques to actually make me more anxious. Is this a defense or a protector from feeling, or does it actually cause anxiety in some people? Is it a sign that I really need to be doing this if I clearly can't relax, or maybe not the right modality?
It is what sometimes causes that is that we might not give ourselves, we might be pushing ourselves too hard and not trusting our instincts and respecting our instincts. What Frumit did here is that she noticed that she's not ready to let it go, and she was probably feeling a little anxious about the idea of letting go of it. Is that correct, Frumit?
Yes, but it's also very interesting because I feel like I want to push myself because I get disappointed with myself. Like you want to heal, you want to get rid of it, but then you're holding on to it. Just let it go. So it's like it's a push and pull.
That's right. But at the same time, you have to trust that your body knows what it wants to hold on to, and respecting your need and yourself, that you are not ready. There is still something you need to gain from that experience, and just notice it, that it has been seen to you and you have been seen to it. There is a mutual respect created between you and this object.
Mhm.
When we are resistant to something, it's because our body knows that we are not ready for this, and we have to acknowledge and respect our bodies not being ready for this. But at the same time, the impact and the disturbance that this object caused you has been greatly reduced, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we can be grateful for that change and shift, and accept that we're not ready to get rid of it yet. I don't
Why
know,
is that? Why is that the body wants to still hold on to some things?
because when we what we call pathology, okay, is not pathology. It's adaptation. It's a way of we have learned to cope with whatever difficulty we had in different stages of our lives. Okay. And maybe we learned to really run into a room when we couldn't deal with something and stay there for hours and hours. That was the only way we could cope. But at the same time, that room was very stressful for us. But that was the only way we knew how to protect ourselves under certain situations. So we have to respect the way we have been able to cope with different situations, and not be condemning of our coping mechanisms that were available to us. We just need to expand our repertoire instead of just getting rid of something that really served us for many, many years. Whichever way we coped with it was probably also painful. However we cope with something, it's still a painful situation. Even the coping time is painful. But we have to respect that this was the way we were able to cope, and this was available. Instead of condemning that part of us, we have to really acknowledge and accept that part of us, and just learn more tools and strengths to build in. And we don't want to really knock ourselves down by the way that we have been able to cope, because those difficulties were also our coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that last question, Mr. Poulter, was adequately answered, if there was a counter question for that.
No, I mean, the other question that came in just now is when there is resistance towards grounding, etc., is it the cerebral part, or you're actually saying it could be the emotional part? It's not. Sometimes we think it's all in our head, but you're actually saying it could be the emotional part.
It could be any part of us that wants to survive. Sometimes there are different ego states. There is that inner child that is not ready to give up that role, or there is a protective part of us feel that pain is protecting us from going into situation that we consider to be dangerous for us. So that might be a protective factor. And then if we hold to that pain, then we might not go into situations that might be too risky for us in our own mind. And then it has a protective factor for us. There are all kinds of different reasons that need to be processed. And from it, you can sit down and write a letter to that box. I wonder what would come out. And maybe that box would like to voice itself.
I should write a letter about what like what should the letter be about?
I don't know. You were saying that I want to get rid of that box, but when the push comes to shove, I just can't get rid of it. I wonder what you would like to say, or what it is saying to you. Why doesn't it want to leave? Why don't you want it to leave? You know, there is this inner dialogue that's taking place.
Mhm.
We have a raised hand here. Gitti, are you there? Would you like to unmute? Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. The information is really, I learned so much today. My question is, so basically the more I learn better tools to contain myself, right? Is
Yeah.
this thing gonna, like my coping mechanism will be able to like go away because I learned better tools to cope instead of what I had. Like my question is, how can I, if I'm learning more and more tools to cope with whatever comes up, will that coping mechanism I learned like automatically be able to let go? Like I'll be able to let go of it?
Well, the more you use your coping mechanisms, Giddy, the more your body will automatically go there. Okay? The more times you utilize that, your body expects to be down-regulated when it gets dysregulated. You know, and the more you are able to stay with it and to down-regulate yourself, your body learns that that's a new pattern. You are capable of being able to down-regulate yourself, and then it expects to be down-regulated, and it doesn't go over the threshold so easily because it knows that it can come back. It can.
Okay, so my question is, so then like Fremit wasn't able to let go of that, of the box, right? So then the more I do that, what you said, I'll find myself like being able to let go of this box more and more. Like that's my question.
Oh, okay. You might be able to let go of that box. At one point, the box might be able to let itself go, or and the box would not be as burdensome. You might be able to learn to live with the box, and you might not be as pained by the box.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal might change too. We might be more accepting, and we might be able to really release it altogether.
Because I understood what you told Fremit was that the reason why one of the reasons why she couldn't let go of the box was because her body, like she used that to survive something.
Correct.
So if I'm healing that fear that I did of what I was afraid, then the box could go away technically, right?
Away. Yes.
So that's my question. So, and when I'm learning better coping tools, the box is automatically going to go away, right?
It might, or if you might choose to adapt to the box,
Or
you know?
maybe keep it as a souvenir, but not let me like.
But trusting yourself that one way or another, you're going to be able to manage better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is our life's work, Gitti. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, like, this is what I say to all my clients. It doesn't matter where we are. It matters which direction we're moving. And it matters that we're on the path of healing. This is our life's work. And being hopeful, as long as we're moving in the right direction, being hopeful for the future makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Thank you.
we set unrealistic expectations, like tomorrow I will be all healed after a tremendous session with my therapist. That's really setting ourselves up. We are just going to learn more tools and understand ourselves better and accept ourselves better and really perceive some of the things that differently than we originally labeled them.
Mhm. Okay, thank you so much.
Well-
I learned a lot today.
I'm glad that we had this session.
Okay, so Rosie, as we wind down here, the hour is almost up, or it is up. Any final thoughts, tidbits, tricks up your sleeve that you waited to the end to share with the world? Like, do you have a magic pill?
Oh, I wish, Mr. Poulter. I wish I had a magic pill. I mean, we all have our painful stories. Some of our stories are more overwhelming than others. And sometimes just because somebody's story does not sound as big as somebody else's, how we are affected doesn't depend on how we measure the trauma. The trauma's measurement is how we experience it. So we have to be really respectful to our body, to our senses. And I really would like you to set up several minutes of, like, if during the day, if I can recommend one thing, take little stickers and put it at different places in your living environment. Maybe one on the refrigerator door, one in your drawer where you keep your pens, one in your briefcase. And every time you see a sticker, just do 1 minute of conscious, mindful breathing. You can't imagine that when we are always at the edge of our tolerance, so little can throw us over if we are always living without a window. Okay, so if we periodically every day bring it down a little bit, we are opening that threshold, just reminding ourselves, like 1 minute of mindful breathing, like 10 times a day, will get us a long way. Just being able to bring it down. This movement is the healing factor, going up and down. That pushes and creates the window of tolerance.
Well, thank you very much, Rosie, for joining us. And we are going to do this again, folks. We have an exciting January coming up. For whatever reason, we have a lot of alumni webinars with a lot of different professionals. Everybody will be notified of it shortly, but Rosie, thank you again. We'll have you on again. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
And stay warm. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.